Time to Audits and Risk Management Committee. Christopher, could we take roll?
Controller Cohen.
Here.
Mr. Tang.
Here.
The State Treasurer, Mr. Ruffino.
Present.
The Superintendent of Public Instruction, Ms. Sanders.
Here.
Chairperson Bradford, you have a quorum.
Thank you. Would you like to read the statement?
Sure. CalSTRS board meetings are live, web streamed, video archived, and available to the public on calstrs.com. Individuals who wish to address the board should wait for the 10-minute public comment period at the end of the agenda item the speaker wishes to address. For comments not pertaining to a specific agenda item, there will be an opportunity for additional statements at the end of the open session. Each speaker is allowed a maximum of 3 minutes to comment. However, if there is not enough time for each speaker to have 3 minutes, the timing will be at the discretion of the chair. To protect the privacy of speakers under the age of 18 who wish to address the board, only their first name and affiliated organization may be provided, but other personal identifying information such as their last name, age, or school may not be shared.
Thank you so much. We need to approve the agenda.
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, agenda passes. Item number 2, approval of the minutes.
So moved. Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that brings us to item number 3, audit services plan update. Good morning. Actually, good afternoon.
Oh, yes. So this is a consent action item, so I don't know if you want me to go through anything with you on this agenda item. Totally up to you.
So do we need to take a roll call vote or just a vote, or we're just moving?
It's a consent action, so you have to move it.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions on item number 3, or are you ready to move it? Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we have moved to the audit services plan update. Are there any public comments so far?
No public comment for this item.
Thank you. Okay, that brings us to number 4, which is an action item as well.
Thank you. So this is our audit services 2025-26 risk-based audit plan proposal, where we're seeking your approval. And here with me today, I have Chris Wall, the Assistant Director over Employer Audits, and then a new face that you haven't met yet, which is Erin Satterwhite, and she's an Internal Audit Manager. For those of you that aren't aware, Roseanne Oyoung retired, and her last day was yesterday. So.
Welcome.
So in this presentation, we're going to give a little overview on the audit plan, the purpose of it. We're going to discuss the risk assessment process to develop that proposed audit plan, and then discuss the proposed audit plan as well. Our global internal audit standards require that we develop a risk-based audit plan that supports the organization in its objectives, as well as consider our resources. It's designed to add value, be flexible, and also align with the organization's strategic goals and enterprise risks. The work that we do from this audit plan is based on our resources, and we set those priorities just based on the number of staff we have and what we can accomplish. And also the risk assessments that develop this plan, what we developed the plan from, is based on 2 distinct risk assessment processes, which is why Chris and Erin are here today. I'll start with Chris, and he's going to discuss the Employer Audits risk assessment process.
Helps if I turn that on. Thanks for having us today. I'll start out by kind of going through our risk assessment process. The risk assessment is a process the Employer Audits team goes through to identify and rank potential risks, and that data is used to develop the audit plan. This process assists the Employer Audits team in selecting the employers to audit based on the level of risk, and also to identify how many auditable areas will be reviewed in the annual audit plan. Finally, when different situations arrive throughout the year, we do reserve the right to make adjustments as needed. The first part is we use data analytics when we do our audits. So we really look at areas that are self-reported by the employers to identify how to select employers. And some of the areas we do look at is the pay rates being reported to us. We'll look at the earnings that are coming in. We review special pay and unused sick leave. And when we get that information, we use Power BI and other resources to really go through and find outliers that may lead us to think that these employers are high risk, and also to help us select samples of employers to audit. We review our internal and external stakeholders, and we get information from them in performing our risk assessment. We take into account the Crow auditors and their results. We also look at prior audits to get an idea of what's been done in the past, what are our experiences, and we use that information in performing our risk assessment. Our work typically focuses on areas that are highest risk, highest risk employers, but we always do reserve the right to pick some medium and low risk employers to audit as well. And as you can see on the slide, our audit plan this year is to complete 125 employer audits, which is an increase from 110 that we did last year. And our main focus for this year is going to be on special pay and salary, which makes up for about 88% of our total population. And the reason we really do focus on those areas is, for one, they're always the highest risk. When we do our risk assessment, they always end up being the highest risk areas. Also, they're the areas that would have the biggest impact on the defined benefit plan as well. One thing I would like to point out is that for next year, we're changing the term pay. We have been using the term base compensation in our audits, but we're going to be changing that term to salary going forward. And that really refers to the pay rate and earnings being reported. And that the reason we're doing that change is to some changes in the terminology that are coming out of the creditable compensation simplification project to make it less confusing once that becomes live. And so you'll start going live with all draft reports being issued after July 1st, 2025.
Okay, and then Erin will talk about the internal audit risk assessment process.
Thanks, Cheryl. Sorry. Great, thank you. So when performing the internal audits risk assessment, we consider both external and internal factors, including things like industry trends, leadership input, our strategic plans, enterprise risks, and prior audits. And we use all that information to update our audit universe. And then next, what we do is we prioritize our risk, the audit universe, by risk, and we consider ratings such as complexities, whether a process is manual or automated, and interdependencies within the agency. Finally, we consider our available resources and our budget, and we prepare and propose the fiscal year audit plan. So we include this slide to demonstrate how all of our proposed audits align with both CalSTRS strategic plan goals, which are captured here in 3 different colors, and enterprise risks, which are denoted with check marks. We did things a little bit differently this year, and we included employer audits in this slide as well, and they're captured there on the lowest gray row. So with that, oops.
There we go. So with all that, as required by standards and our ARM committee charter and our audit services charter, we need your approval to not only approve the plan, but also any significant changes. And as we mentioned earlier, our plan is based on our resources. So this is a new slide we haven't done in the past, but this kind of shows you where our resources are allocated: employer audits, internal audits, the other audit activities, and there's more information in your attachment, but that's risk assessments, quality program that we have, our standards, sitting on committees, and then also the data solutions has a slice now because that's a new unit we developed. And then as required by standards, we must have certain hours of professional development. So we're happy to answer any questions you may have.
I do not see any questions from the board. Dr. Yatman, would you? Oh, right. Do you want to go first or after Dr. Yatman? Okay.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just, in my opinion, the 25-26 audit plan for internal audits and school districts is a prudent use of resources.
Frank, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. And I'm not sure if this is appropriate at this time, but I want to ask a quick question about the past year. were any material weaknesses or systematic issues uncovering during audits that are informing this past year audit focus or approach?
So we will do a recap of this last fiscal year in September, and then you'll get kind of a thematic conclusion on where I would focus resources on. And we do and as you saw on item 3, we do list all of our key findings there, and those are ones that to me are higher risk for you to focus on as a committee. And then also, again, we're looking at the higher risk. So as you see pension solutions in there, right? They're going live in September, October, fall. But we reserve some hours for that, but we also don't want to impede the process of going live.
Sure.
So we're staying out of benefit and services and financial services as much as we can until they go live. And then if they need us, we can be flexible and adjust. So we reserve some hours for that. And then just like the enterprise risk information, there's nothing material that I'm aware of, but if I do, you're gonna be the first to know.
Of course. Well, thank you for that. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Of course. Seeing no further questions, this is an action item to approve the proposed audit plan for next year. Ken's moved it. Elizabeth has seconded. So all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we have approved the audit plan for next year. Thank you. Are there any public comments?
There are no members of the public in the queue.
Thank you. Okay, item number 5.
Yes, this is an information item that you receive every year. We're required to have the CalSTRS audit financial statements audited by an independent certified public accounting firm, and you selected Crow as your financial statement auditor, so they'll be here to present their client services plan. Typically, Jen's here, Aris, and typically Kevin Smith, but he is out today, so we have a replacement. Welcome, Hamze.
Hi, welcome.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having Crow here today to cover our client service plan for the fiscal year June 30, 2025 audit. Do we have the folder? Thank you. No, you're fine. Thank you. So we have a brief agenda for you here today. I'm going to cover our client service team and the roles and responsibilities of all interested parties in the audit. Hamze will go over scope, deliverables, approach, and timeline. And then we'll both speak to the planning communications and considerations before wrapping up to address any questions that you may have. So here we have our client service team for you. As Cheryl mentioned, Kevin Smith is the signing partner on the engagement. He's unfortunately home ill today. Jen Aris, I'm also one of the partners here on the engagement. Dan O'Malley is someone that has been on the engagement for a number of years, and I'm happy to announce that he was recently promoted to partner effective April 1st. So he is assuming the role and continuing in his area of expertise of investment risk assessment and valuation. So you will have 3 partners serving you on site this year between Kevin, myself, and Dan. Rich Paraloo is also a partner assigned to the engagement. He is focused in on the information technology component of our audit, not only related to the annual financial statement audit for financially significant systems, but also has taken the lead on our required responsibilities related to Benefit Connect that we'll speak to further in just a moment. Rounding out the team here, we have Hamze Katan, who is the main senior manager in charge of the engagement. He was here with us last fall as part of our presentation, so hopefully that's a familiar face. Ron Gasink runs the procedures that we perform over the employers that are selected annually for testing. We have a manager and senior manager, Cassandra and Josh, that round out our information technology team. And then many other individuals as part of our staffing through the senior and staff level that both have consistency in being on the engagement, as well as new members are added annually. And some of our existing members are rotated to work on different parts of the audit. And so really trying to balance consistency and knowledge of the organization along with a fresh perspective and ability to challenge and maybe see things differently annually. We also utilize 2 specialists and contractors as part of our engagement team. So we have an actuarial specialist that assists us in our evaluation of your actuarial procedures. And then we utilize a third-party investment valuation firm, Harvest Investments, to help with some of the investment valuation testing that we perform. So from a roles and responsibilities perspective, there are really, three key components here related to the audit. And so first is those charged with governance, or the ARM committee, and your role in overseeing the external audit, the scope of the audit, approach, and plan timeline, and then ultimate responsibility for the integrity of those published financial statements. Management, of course, is responsible for preparing the financial statements and really ensuring that there's a process of internal controls in place to prepare all of that financial information. And then Crow, as your external auditor, is really hired to perform the audit under both generally accepted audit standards and governmental audit standards. And we also act as a component auditor of the state of California. And so take that role, very seriously and have open communication throughout that process. So I'll pass it over to Hamze.
All right. So I'll go over the overall scope of the audit and the deliverables, meaning what we'll be presenting to you in November. So we're opining on both the financial statements of the system and the other pension information, meaning although the procedures are performed concurrently and they're directly related, they are two separate audits with two separate opinions. Accompanying each one of those opinions is an independent auditor's report on internal control over financial reporting and compliance. And then in November, we'll be presenting what's called the required communication letter to you, which is summarizing the results of the audit, any changes from what we discuss here today in our approach, and any other critical matters we think we need to bring to your attention. Through our audit, should we discover any significant deficiencies or material weakness that we feel as though warrant your attention, we'll be issuing a separate management letter. So as your internal auditor, you rely on us to be professionally skeptical, maintain independence and objectivity. Although we've got a great relationship with management and work well with them, our responsibility is to you and the users of the financial. So we treat every year as though it's its own separate audit. We're performing our audit in phases. However, the risk assessment is continuous throughout the year. Given the volatility in the market and the changes in the political landscape, we're constantly reassessing our risk and tailoring our audit procedures as we deem necessary. Also, sometimes as we're digging into things, we might discover things that we feel are risky. We start every audit by performing inquiries with both you, the ARM committee, and key members of your staff just to understand the overall environment, any significant changes. What do you think is risky? Any emerging areas that we need to pay attention to? And through that, we formulate an audit plan and start off by understanding the internal control environment, specifically over significant IT systems and key accounts. And then that helps us gain reliance over the information that's coming out of the systems to be able to complete our substantive test, which is testing the balances at June 30 once you receive your reports. Our key, what we determine to be key is the investments, the valuation and their existence, the total pension plan liability, which is a significant estimate, the contributions and census data that feeds into that estimate, and then any potential areas where management can override the controls that are in place. So digging in a little deeper to our, what we call significant audit areas, really the first question we ask ourselves is what could go wrong? And that's how we then determine the risk of material misstatement. As you can tell, where we spend probably the most amount of time is on the investments, their valuation and accompanying income, and then the total and net pension liabilities, which is a big estimate and requires a lot of work testing the census data, which is the inputs, and then understanding the estimate that the actuary has put together. In addition, revenue recognition, which is the contributions that is coming in from the employers, is also a key area, and then the overall process in putting together your financial statements and presenting them. So getting into our timeline, this really is a a year-round audit. So as soon as we've issued in October, we're getting started on the next one, kicking off really with the testing the census data, as that the census data is used in the pension liability, and it is a year behind. We really got to get started at that immediately, also starting with our planning. And our planning includes discussions with key members, talking to y'all, and understanding the overall environment. Then we move into our execution phase, which can kind of be split into two, maybe even three areas, where we'll start off with what we call interim. So just a few short weeks ago, our IT team was out here testing systems, gearing us up for our ability to be able to do internal controls here, actually next week, and we'll be out here for 2 weeks. The reason they kind of come out ahead of us is if they're able to identify deficiencies in the system, that means we're probably going to have to tailor the controls that we're looking at and the conversations that we're having. After we've gotten through our interim procedures, we're moving on to year end, which is really testing the balances at June 30. And finally summarizing, all the work and hours we put into a few short pages in our reporting phase, where we're issuing an opinion, issuing the letters we discussed, and presenting them to you in November. So to wrap up, just some planning communications and considerations. We are required to talk about the concept of materiality, which is a qualitative and quantitative calculation where we try to determine what is material to you, the users. So we're not testing every transaction. We're not testing to the penny. We're sampling. And based on that, we're designing procedures to address the significant risk of material misstatement, whether it be to fraud or area. So our audit procedures, although the goal is not to look for fraud or uncover fraud, however, they are designed, if material fraud was to be present, that we would be able to detect it and provide reasonable assurance that the financial statements are fairly presented. If we were to uncover fraud, we are responsible for communicating that, starting with management and then moving up the chain as required. Our use of the work of internal audit, Cheryl and their team are sending us the reports as they're coming out, and we use that as part of our risk assessment. If anything is identified in those reports that requires us to maybe tailor our procedures differently or consider things that we hadn't considered before, we are reading those reports. Your views on risk in areas that warrant particular attention. I mean, like I said, our responsibility is to you. We work for you, so we're available to have those discussions, whether they be now or later. And then the key considerations for the 2012 audit, which I went over, being the investments, the valuations, et cetera. So on everyone's mind and a constant discussion is Benefit Connect. Although it's not live, so because it's not live, we haven't determined it to be financially significant for this year. However, Jen will be going over some of the stuff that we're getting started on here shortly.
Thanks, Hamze. So as Hamze mentioned, Benefit Connect is not considered to be financially significant for the fiscal year 2025 audit. And I guess in plain terms, that means none of the information provided from that system is being utilized for the financial statements for 2025. But we're getting really close. We would anticipate that it's going to provide financially significant information for 2026. And so we actually started at the beginning of this calendar year working diligently with your management team, with internal audit, really gearing up and starting those procedures that we're required to do as it relates to Benefit Connect, and really, partnering along throughout this process here and starting our procedures. So we're not looking to do everything in the fall right at that go live time. This really gives us the opportunity to not only work through a large volume of items that we just need to do based on how important that system is, but also, not anticipated, but should we identify any areas of concern, we want to raise those earlier rather than later so that management has the opportunity to react. So we've started with our pre-implementation phase, like I said, really started that a few months ago. At that go live point in the fall, we will also be performing procedures and then looking to post-implementation, so fall into winter. We'll be looking at the system in preparation for that fiscal year 2026 audit. I also just wanted to clarify that we're really trying to be efficient and respectful of the fact of the level of effort that's going into Benefit Connect from your team, and have partnered with internal audit where it makes sense to gain some efficiency and really be respectful of the time of the Benefit Connect team. And so we've held some joint meetings and really appreciate that partnership to make sure that we get what we need, but that we're not a roadblock, if you will, in the process. So very grateful for that, and certainly will continue to communicate as we work through our procedures there. And then lastly for you here, oh gosh, sorry, I hit the wrong button there. There we go. Lastly for you here, we are your independent external auditor, and we take that role very seriously. We have a number of procedures in place that we work through annually, not only at the beginning of each audit, but throughout the audit process. And so we're happy to confirm to you, here in writing, that we are independent as it relates to the system. So we will, of course, continue to monitor that throughout the audit process, but don't anticipate any issues. Oops, I keep hitting the wrong button. Sorry about that. There you go. So any questions we're happy to address.
Dr. Gatman?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So it's important for the board to know that although Pension Solution or Connect is not in scope of the audit, that's really a term of art, which means that, well, the transactions have not entered into the financial statements in a material way, which it will in all expectation. We all hope, yay, next year. That does not, however, mean that it's being ignored. As was presented, they are in fact ramping up procedures for current, go live, and even after go live. And your internal audit department is also not ignoring the implementation of this. So although it is not technically in scope, which is true, according to standards, that does not mean it's being ignored at all. And then also, Jen and Hamza, can you just briefly comment on the expectation of field work which will be done in person relative to remote?
Yeah, certainly. Hamza touched on it a bit, but just to reiterate, we have tried to balance our procedures to be in person and remote, and really what's most efficient and effective. And so at each phase of the audit, we have team members here on site for at least 2 weeks, sometimes closer to a month. And we've really, partnered with management and understanding staff's schedules and their availability. And so we are here to do in-person walkthroughs of internal controls. When it makes most sense to look at supporting documents and paper, we're getting those stacks of paper to go through. And when it makes most sense for us to work through things kind of back at our office based on information that's been provided, we're doing that. Certainly we have some, I'll call them advance weeks or prep weeks, where we're gathering populations from your team, we're selecting samples and sending that over in advance so that there's time for staff to pull supporting documents. So Hamza, I think, used the term year-round audit, and it really is fluid, but there's a lot of time here on site in the building.
Any questions? Seeing none. Thank you so much. I think we've really adapted through COVID up into now in the work day and the work week and where everyone is. And we appreciate all the flexibility from everyone in the building and your team. I think it's working out well, have a good rhythm going.
Thank you.
Are there any public comments on item number 5?
There are no members of the public in the queue.
Okay, great. That brings us to item number 6. Enterprise Risk Management and Compliance Maturity Plan.
There we go. All right, Chair Bradford, members of the committee, Julie Underwood, Chief Investment, wow. I guess it's been a long morning. Apologies. I'm the Chief Financial Officer. And I'm here with Lynn Bashaw. Let's see if I can get her title right. She's our director over our risk and compliance programs. And we are here to present the closeout report for the 18-month maturity plan for our enterprise risk management and our enterprise compliance services maturity plans. Now, just as a reminder, these maturity plans were developed based on our current strategic plans objective to mature our risk and compliance programs. So I just want to start out by expressing just how proud I am of our team, of what they have accomplished over this 18 months. They've really showed a lot of dedication and determination on this effort. From day one, they really embraced this as a challenge to see what they could accomplish. And they have really made strides to ensure that the work that they've done has brought the programs to a new level of excellence. And so I'm very pleased to report that they have accomplished most of the initiatives that they set out to do, or some of the initiatives will be transitioned into the next work plan, which Lynn will discuss with you during the next agenda item. But one thing I did want to call out before Lynn presents more of the details of the closeout report is just how personally invested staff was to strengthening their own expertise by obtaining certifications. 3 staff earned the Certified Compliance and Ethics Professional designation, and 1 staff earned the Governance, Risk, and Compliance Professional designation. So I think their commitment to continuous learning really shows, it really speaks volumes to their dedication to this effort. So as we close out this 18th month chapter and now move to more regular yearly work plans, I just wanted to underscore that these activities really have allowed us to build a more stronger foundation in our programs, which has enabled us to better identify, assess, and mitigate our risks, which really has made us a much stronger organization as a result. So I just want to thank you for your support of these maturity objectives, as well as thank the team. Thank you, Lynn, for your leadership, as well as Megan Dean, who manages our compliance program, and Phil Burkholder, who manages our risk program, who both are in the back of the room, so hopefully they can wave and identify themselves. And thank you to the teams for all their hard work in getting us to this point. And I really look forward to seeing what they'll accomplish in the next plan. So I'm going to turn it over to Lynn.
Thank you, Julie. Yeah, I'm very lucky. I have an amazing team. So this, just as a reminder, this is an informational item on the Enterprise Risk Management, Enterprise Compliance Services 18-month maturity plan closeout report. Although the report was initially set to close out in June 2025, we're going to go ahead and present it just a little bit early because nearly, like Julie said, nearly all the items have been completed or are being continued to the FY 25-26 plan, which is the next item. So, here we go. This 18-month initiative began in January 2024 and was designed to strengthen CalSTRS risk and compliance infrastructure in alignment with our strategic plan Goal 1, Objective E, to enhance how risks are defined, viewed, and managed. As a reminder, the maturity plans aim to provide several benefits, including updating our risk and compliance framework and charters, improving risk and compliance reporting, enhancing staff capabilities through training and certification, having a proactive risk and ethics culture, and supporting strategic decision-making. This work aligns with our goal of developing best-in-class ERM and ECS programs that are proactive, agile, and aligned with leading practices. By leveraging leading practices, this provides us with a structure for measuring and maturing our programs. While the models for enterprise risk and enterprise compliance have a lot in common, they are slightly different. Most of the maturity models that we leverage in developing the plan, though, center around core areas like governance, strategy, performance, communication, and technology. This slide shows the maturity model components as they were when the ERM program, when we first started this 18-month maturity plan back in November 2023. You'll see our goal was to bring all of the components to the managed phase. To be considered managed, a program needs to be metrics-driven, regularly measured, evaluated, and have high engagement across the organization. The hashed part of the bars show the amount of progress that we made towards the plan. You'll see that we didn't complete all the initiatives that we set out to. For example, in the technology bar, we didn't make any notable progress because the software procurement took longer than expected. But I am pleased to report the procurement was completed last month, and we will be rolling those initiatives forward into the next maturity plan. We had also set out to fully integrate risk appetite statements into strategic planning, but we found that they really just weren't very actionable. So we have pivoted towards risk tolerance instead. It's important to remember that as we move towards increased maturity, there's also increased complexity. So it's expected to take years to reach our target goal. Even with these challenges, we were still able to complete a number of items on the plan. Some notable accomplishments include updating again the charter and the framework, which was approved by this committee in May 2024, developed and began executing a formal training plan. We mapped risk appetite to CalSTRS core values and created a consolidated risk universe. We designed frameworks to assess internal and external risk factors. We partnered with enterprise strategy management to better align our risk efforts with strategic planning. And we created an annual needs assessment for ERM stakeholders, which will support continuous program review. So now we turn to enterprise compliance services. This slide shows the maturity model components where the ECS program was when we presented this plan to you back in November 2023. You'll notice the compliance program is not as mature as the risk program. It really just hasn't been around as long. So our maturity plan for compliance was centered around more foundational elements and in bringing our program closer to that repeatable phase. And repeatable really means that we've achieved some limited standardization and that the program has some structured requirements around it. The hash marks on this slide show the progress we were able to achieve. You'll note that we were able to complete most of the initiatives, but once again, because the software procurement took so long, the technology initiative was not completed. However, some accomplishments include the team transitioned the enterprise-wide policy attestation process from human resources. We mapped assurance activities and aligned them with the Department of Justice standards for effective compliance. We developed a compliance monitoring framework and selected some pilot policies to test in the next fiscal year. We worked towards aligning compliance risk assessments with ERM's framework, and we promoted staff professional development. Here's another way of measuring our progress. These arrows show where we started the maturity scale back in November 2023. You'll see enterprise compliance is at the repeatable stage, and enterprise risk management was at the defined stage. So as we close out this maturity plan, this is where we currently stand. Both enterprise risk and compliance have made progress in moving up the scale. Looking ahead towards next steps, the new maturity plan will begin July 1st. Items continued from this cycle, such as full integration of the risk software, will carry forward. And we will continue to report our progress and challenges as we mature these programs. In closing, while the plan faced challenges, particularly around procurement timing, we're proud of the foundational improvements made in risk and compliance management. These efforts set the stage for greater operational maturity and organizational resilience. Thank you, and we're available for any questions.
Dr. Yatman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Those of us with an institutional memory recall the days, you're nodding, recall the days prior to Director Bashaw and prior to the system which we've seen presented today. And I am delighted with the progress that it's made at this point. It's been deliberate, it's been careful, and most importantly, it hasn't been rushed. One can imagine that in an attempt to get those bars all the way to the right, and let's get that shading over to the right, that you can push while not actually getting the work done. And so what I applaud most is staff's deliberate attempt to make sure that the hard work was done, to getting the heavy lifting done. And so I'm delighted with the progress that they've had today. It's a small group, it's a mighty group, and I'm very excited about the future. And I would urge them to maintain the pace of deliberate, careful, doing the hard work, as much as and the software is going to be great. I'm excited, Lynn, about the software, but it doesn't do the work for you. You got to do the work, and so that's what's really great about what we've seen so far. Careful, deliberate, not rushed, and a strong foundation's been built. So it'll be exciting to watch over the next few years. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. I just want to echo what Dr. Yatman said. I remember when we started this plan and everybody thinking, maybe it's a little lofty to think we could accomplish all of this. And I know it's all because of your hard work. So thank you all and your team for doing doing so much in so little time. Are there any public comments on item 6? Oh, right, sorry, I didn't see you.
Oh, that's okay, thank you, Madam Chair. Just want to make a quick comment for Julie and and Ms. Basha. If you guys can extend our thanks and our congrats to the staff members that you mentioned, who went above and beyond their duties to earn the additional training and professional certification. This is obviously a significant accomplishment and a testament to their hard work and dedication. So please convey our heartfelt congrats and thanks. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Sorry, Samantha, were there any public comments?
There's no public comment for this item.
That's not Samantha, but thank you. Okay, item number 7.
Oh, thank you, Julie.
That's Lynn as well.
Okay, me again, Lynn Bashaw, your Director of Enterprise Risk and Compliance. So this item is the FY 25-26 Enterprise Risk Management and Compliance Services Maturity Plan. You'll notice, to Dr. Yetman's point, this plan is not as ambitious as last year's plan. It's also on a shorter scale. So our first plan was an 18-month plan. Now we're converting over to a fiscal year, so it's a 12-month plan. So you just won't see as much on it. This plan, once again, supports CalSTRS Strategic Plan Goal 1, Objective E, to enhance how risks are defined, viewed, and managed. It's also aligned with the ARM Committee Charter, ensuring proper governance and accountability for risk and compliance functions. This plan builds on the progress of the previous 18-month maturity plan, continuing our efforts to develop that best-in-class risk and compliance program that are proactive, ethical, and resilient. This year's plan continues our work to improve how we identify, assess, and mitigate risks, advance our ethical culture, comply with applicable laws and regulations, and integrate risk management into strategic planning. It's informed by recommendations from Weaver and Tidwell, a consultant who evaluated our ERM and ECS programs back in 2023 using industry best practices. Their feedback helped inform these structured roadmaps for both programs. So let's start with enterprise risk management. Once again, we're excited to report that as of last month, we have procured our enterprise risk management software. We hope that this will help to automate some of our risk data collection and reporting, improve analysis of workflows, and strengthen risk reporting across the organization. Some of our priorities highlighted in this plan include focusing on risk tolerances tied to strategic plan metrics, shifting away from those general risk appetite statements. We want to develop more key risk indicators, or KRIs, continue to align enterprise risk management efforts with strategic objectives, support a professional development program for risk staff, and advance risk response structures and analytical capabilities. The maturity plan reflects the understanding that risk management must continue to evolve with the changing environment. For enterprise compliance services, our work plan focuses on strengthening the compliance infrastructure and promoting an ethical culture. Major efforts for this plan include piloting a proactive policy review process, enhancing education through hotline case manager and policy management education plans, deploying compliance software to automate some of our policy management. We want to continue to support third-party risk oversight, and we're going to be working on streamlining our system of organizational controls, or SOC reports. Those are related to third parties. And we're going to continue to align some of our distributed compliance functions across the organization. The enterprise compliance team is also focused on enabling policy owners with the knowledge and tools needed to maintain effective and compliant policies. So this slide shows where we currently are on the maturity scale. It's important to recognize that maturing these programs is a multi-year effort. As complexity increases, so does the need for collaboration, communication, and leadership buy-in. Not every function needs to reach that fully optimized state. The goal is to mature to the appropriate level that balances effectiveness with cost and complexity. This slide shows where we want to be at the end of this maturity plan, with enterprise compliance in the defined category and enterprise risk in the managed category. So in closing, this maturity plan continues our journey towards a more highly engaged and responsive risk program and a standardized and consistent compliance program with new tools, stronger processes, and a clear roadmap CalSTRS is well positioned to navigate risks and foster a culture of accountability and compliance. Thank you. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Go ahead, Michelle.
Thank you. It's just, I appreciate you commenting about, sort of the plan progress, right? The previous presentation where we sort of saw where our markers moved, and then this one as far as the next 12 months or fiscal year for our plan progress. And I do appreciate you also letting us know that not every element needs to get to that optimizing space. But maybe you could talk a little bit more about that, and that's just because I don't necessarily have all of the history of where do you sort of, where do you see both the compliance and the risk management? Where do we want them to be? Do we want them, when do we know we're done, I guess is the question. Never done, I get that. But
I would always default to that we're never done.
We've changed ourselves to go to a fiscal and not be completely understand, but I think I'm trying to figure out where's that sweet spot. And maybe that changes year over year as new risks become evident, but maybe you can just talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah, I think you kind of answered your own question.
Oh, great.
It does,
Oh,
it
good.
changes, it's gonna change. Year over year, we're gonna reassess, we'll reevaluate, we'll see is what we're doing working for us, or do we need to continue to mature to that optimizing stage? If I had my crystal ball, I would estimate right now, we could likely move the enterprise risk management to that optimizing phase without too much cost or complexity. It's gonna take more to move that enterprise compliance team to that optimized phase because they just aren't as mature. And so it's just gonna take longer. But when we get to the next plan and the next plan, we'll just continue to look and see, is this what we want? Or do we want to invest more resources, more time, more complexity within that? Or are we comfortable with where we're at? So that really is up to all of you, our executive team, to figure out what works for us. Are you getting enough information? Do you feel comfortable with the assurance that the enterprise risk and compliance teams are providing you?
Good question. Nothing? Okay. Are there any public comments on item 7?
There are no public comments for item 7.
Okay, thank you so much. Item number 8, Enterprise Risk Management Report.
Me again. Hi, Lynn Bichon here, Director of Enterprise Risk and Compliance. I'm just knocking them all out right at once. So good afternoon. I'm here to present the semi-annual Enterprise Risk Management, or ERM, report reflecting the risk environment and activities as of March 31st, 2025. This report is for informational purposes and reflects our ongoing commitment to maintaining a robust risk management culture here at CalSTRS. Since our last update in September 2024, we've made solid progress on our risk management efforts. Some key updates for this reporting period include, we completed our branch level risk assessments for fiscal year 2023-24. We initiated an annual enterprise risk and compliance training, which we typically do every year. We do expect 100% compliance with that by May. We issued our SLAY report. It was submitted to the Department of Finance. SLAY is a State Leadership Accountability Act. If for anybody that's not familiar with that, it's an annual requirement. And then we had something a little bit different, approval of a one-time policy exception to not perform the 24-25 branch risk assessments. This ensures that CalSTRS staff working on pension solution can prioritize that project instead of working on their branch risk assessments. And it helps my team to be able to focus on our newly acquired software. We've performed these branch risk assessments for a number of years, and we feel that skipping them this year will not increase the organization's risk profile, especially because many of our processes and controls will be changing with the new software, the new pension solution project. We just didn't see much value in continuing to document controls that will be changing soon. Our other risk management processes, such as evaluating emerging risks, meeting with our risk champions and our executive team, that'll still continue throughout the year. So CalSTRS uses a structured enterprise risk management framework to regularly assess and monitor 10 enterprise level risks. These categories are reviewed through our ERM heat map and a detailed risk score report. It tracks inherent risks and the effect of mitigating strategies to produce residual risk scores. Some of our risk landscape observations. As a reminder, the information security risk, that category continues to be our highest scored enterprise level risk. This is not new. It's something we've had on our heat map for a number of years now. This higher score reflects not only the importance of information security, but also the challenges that all organizations face in managing it. We also saw a slight decrease in the operational inherent risk due to the removal of headquarters expansion risk, as that project has already been completed, and the addition of sub-risks related to strategic initiative execution and AI implementation. These movements reflect a dynamic and responsive approach to evolving risk factors. So this is our emerging risk universe map. We regularly update our map to reflect new and shifting threats. We also updated the slide for easier readability to bring the radar map more into focus. So 2 changes for this cycle. Change management fatigue was removed. We believe that active monitoring has reduced this concern, and geopolitical disruptions have increased in immediacy due to international conflict and political changes. We also considered new risks tied to tariffs, tax reforms, and labor market shifts, but determined they're either being addressed already or captured in some of our other broader categories that we already had. So looking ahead, our ERM maturity plan continues into fiscal year 25-26. Over the next year, we're going to focus on enhancing identification of emerging and existential risks. We're going to continue collaboration with our risk champions and our executive leaders. We're going to ensure alignment with our CalSTRS strategic plan. And we're going to be reevaluating the content and frequency of our risk management reports, not only to this ARM committee, but also how and when to communicate risk information to the full board. All this is going to be supported by our newly acquired risk management software. So in conclusion, the ERM program continues to evolve effectively in response to internal and external challenges. All 10 risk categories remain adequately managed, and our processes reflect a proactive and agile risk culture. Thank you for your time. I'm available for any questions.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So typically when someone tells you that they're going to postpone a risk assessment, that's when you wake up and say, what did you just say? But in this case, I very much support staff's position. As was articulated quite well already, it gives Lynn's folks a chance to catch their breath, but more importantly, staff is quite busy this year with, I've heard that there's this pension solution, something going on. So, and also, in my opinion, and I've looked at this rather carefully, I don't think postponement of 1 year imposes any additional risk on the organization. I don't think we'd see a lot of significant change in updating those risk assessments. In my opinion, they would look a whole lot, if not identical, to what you saw the year before. So I think a 1 year pause is prudent, and I support that. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Okay, seeing no questions from the board, are there any public comments on item 8?
There are no public comments for item 8.
Okay, thank you very much, Lynn. Item number 9, 25-26 work plan.
Yes. Hi. So we are proposing next year's work plan, and there are a few changes I wanted to call your attention to. We typically have 3 meetings, and November and September are staying the same. However, we are moving to, we're in May right now, to March next year because of the fullness of May, for one, but also because Dr. Yetman's contract is expiring June 30, and so that we need to have a time to do the RFP and the finalist interviews as well in order to get that contract started by July 1. So that's one of the things I wanted to call to your attention. Also, we haven't done a routine review of the ARM policy in the governance manual, Section 8. So we're going to add that to the work plan this year. And then also there's an education item that I slated for September, if that works for everyone. I try to distribute all the reporting, and I thought September would fit the best. What I would like is we've been kind of throwing out some ideas of what you'd like to be educated on. So whether September works for you, I'd like to hear, and then also what topics you might be interested in. One idea was what happens after an audit, employer audit specifically, maybe roles and responsibilities between external versus internal audits, or Crow could come in and present on some new and upcoming GASB or best practices over oversight of the artificial intelligence. Also how audit committees and investment committees can work together on control oversight. So there's a plethora of topics. It's really up to you all what you're interested in. And I'll let that sink in, but if you have anything for me now, I'm happy to take it back. Otherwise, if you want to email.
My question was, when would you like that by?
Yeah.
A week?
Oh, no, I think by end of June would be great, yeah.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
July for adoption, so anytime before the offsite.
So before the offsite, we need to have it on the work plan.
Yes,
Okay, just so you guys have a time frame.
great.
You could even just put it on the end of the board survey that we get, if you have ideas.
Okay. All right, any questions on that?
That it?
That's it.
Okay, questions from the board? No? Dr. Yetman? All good?
Yep. So the board governance manual that Cheryl alluded to, which has not been updated in
20.
well, yeah, 20
Long
years.
time.
I would like your permission to work with Cheryl on that.
Yes, please.
Thank you.
Okay, that's all for item number 9 then? Are there any public comments?
There are no public comments for item 9.
All right, I don't believe we had information requests, Christopher, no? Okay, draft agenda for the next meeting, you kind of already went over. Does anyone have questions or comments on that? All right, and then item number 12, statements from the public. I think we're good.
There are no public comments for item 12.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We were supposed to have an hour working lunch. Most of the board has eaten, so I'm going to try very hard to make that 45 minutes for lunch, and then we'll be back for the board meeting. So 1 o'clock, 1:45, we'll start the full board. Thank you.